Hi everybody, Brian here once again, and this one is our last discussion of the Harry Potter books and films and theme park attractions. This is the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I am trying to pull up my sheet on my computer while I wait for Angela to jump on here and we can start talking about it. This one will probably be a relatively quick discussion of the actual film and more of the general story, or it might just be me reading quotes from one of the later chapters and trying not to cry. We'll see. I suppose I will start. I will read the plot summary for Deathly Hallows Part 2. This, of course, is a continuation from Deathly Hallows Part 1, and it all comes from the same novel. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is one book in the series, and they split it into two movies, but about 2/3 of it went into the first movie and about a third in this one, mostly because this one is two giant set pieces. It is the escape from Gringotts that we'll talk about in a little bit, and then the Battle of Hogwarts. So I'm going to try to add Angela one more time here, and then I will start reading the plot summary and see if she can get back in here. All right, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, Part 2. After burying Dobby, oh, poor Dobby, Harry Potter asked the goblin Griphook to help he, Ron, and Hermione break into Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts Bank, suspecting a Horcrux may be there. He is, of course, correct. Griphook agrees in exchange for the sword of who had been kidnapped by the Malfoys, you'll remember. And was rescued from at the end of the last movie along with Griphook. Ollivander tells Harry that two wands taken from Malfoy Manor belong to Bellatrix herself and Draco Malfoy, but Malfoy's wand seems to have changed its allegiance to Harry. Now pay attention to that, because wand allegiances will become very important for the end game. In Bellatrix's vault, Harry discovers the Horcrux is Helga Hufflepuff's cup. He retrieves it, but Griphook snatches the sword and abandons the trio, leaving them to security. The three release the vault's dragon guardian, a guard dragon, and flee on its back. Harry sees a vision of Voldemort killing goblins, including Griphook, and learns that Voldemort is aware of the theft. During this vision, the sword of Gryffindor does disappear, which will make more sense later. Harry also realizes there is a Horcrux at Hogwarts School, somehow connected to Rowena Ravenclaw. The trio apparate into Hogsmeade, where Aberforth Dumbledore reluctantly instructs the portrait of his deceased younger sister Ariana to fetch Neville Longbottom, who then leads the trio through a secret passageway into Hogwarts. Back at Hogwarts, Harry confronts Snape, who flees after Minerva McGonagall challenges him to a duel. McGonagall gathers the Hogwarts community for a battle. At Luna's insistence, Harry speaks to Helena Ravenclaw's ghost. This is Rowena's daughter, who is known as the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw, who reveals that Voldemort performed dark magic on her mother's diadem, not sure, which is in the Room of Requirement, but the version that has all of the hidden stuff in it. Sorry, I was just checking to see. It looks like Angela might have restarted something because she disappeared. So hopefully when she comes back, everything will work well. Hermione destroys the Horcrux cup, this is Hufflepuff's cup, with a basilisk fang that her and Ron get out of the Chamber of Secrets. Remember that one. Wait, I jumped ahead. In the Room of Requirement, Draco, Goyle, and Blaise Zabini attack Harry, but Ron and Hermione intervene. Goyle creates a Fiendfire curse, and unable to control it, because that's kind of how Fiendfire works, he is burned to death, but Harry and his friends save Malfoy and Blaise. Harry stabs the diadem with the Basilisk Fang, and Ron kicks it into the Room of Requirement, where it is destroyed, because Fiendfire is one of those things that can destroy Horcruxes. As Voldemort's army attacks, Harry, seeing into Voldemort's mind, realizes that Voldemort's snake Nagini is the final Horcrux. They also see Voldemort telling Snape that the Elder Wand cannot serve Voldemort until Snape dies. He's mistaken about that, by the way. He orders Nagini to kill Snape before dying. Snape tells Harry to take his pensive. In the chaos at Hogwarts, turns out Fred Weasley, Lupin, and Tonks have all been killed, among many others. Harry learns from Snape's memories that while Snape despised Harry's late father, James, he actually loved his mother, Lily. Following her death, Snape worked secretly with Dumbledore to protect Harry from Voldemort because of his love for Lily. He also learned that Dumbledore was dying because of the curse that had been put on his hand by the ring that he had found that was a Horcrux. And the entire plot with Snape killing him was just that. It was a plot between Dumbledore and Snape. And he also finds out the Patronus dough he saw in them, finds out a lot of stuff in this scene. Finds out the Patronus dough he saw in the woods was conjured by Snape that led him to Gryffindor's sword the first time. And most importantly, Harry finds out that he himself is a Horcrux, accidentally made by Voldemort when he tried to kill him as a baby. Harry then surrenders himself to Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest. Quite a bit more on this later. This is my favorite chapter in the book. Voldemort casts the killing curse upon Harry, who finds himself in Limbo, where Dumbledore's spirit meets him and explains that the part of Voldemort within Harry was killed by Voldemort's own curse. But Harry himself wasn't, because Voldemort took his blood back in the Goblet of Fire, thus extending his mother's charm and tethering him to life. So once again, Voldemort is his own downfall. His hubris is his downfall, as it usually is. Voldemort announces Harry's apparent death to everyone at Hogwarts and demands they all surrender. Angela!
Is it working?
It is. You're a little choppy,
Okay.
but it's. I can hear you and stuff. All right, I'm just going to quick finish this last paragraph, and then Voldemort announces Harry's apparent death to everyone at Hogwarts and demands they all surrender. As Neville gives a defiant response and draws the sword of Gryffindor from the sorting hat, Harry reveals he is still alive, and the Malfoys and many Death Eaters abandon Voldemort. Well, Harry confronts Voldemort in a duel throughout the castle for some reason. Molly kills Bellatrix in the Great Hall, and Neville decapitates Nagini. As you remember, that is the final Horcrux. Harry and Voldemort fight. Harry and Voldemort's fight ends with Voldemort's own killing curse rebounding upon him. After the battle, Harry explains to Ron and Hermione that the Elder Wand had recognized him as the true master because he had disarmed Draco, who earlier had disarmed its previous owner, Dumbledore. But instead of claiming the Elder Wand, Harry breaks and discards it. In a post-movie scene, 19 years later, we see Harry and Ginny, who are now married, and Ron and Hermione, who are now married. And Draco is also there. And they all watch their children leave for Hogwarts from King's Cross Station. Whew, I haven't done one of those all by myself in a while. That was a lot of words.
I know. Yes. So I restarted my Wi-Fi, I restarted my phone, and I took my earbuds out because I don't know if that's why you couldn't hear me. So I might be a little quieter than Brian, so I will try to speak up. But I'm here, and I heard most of the summary, so I think I'm up to date.
Well, presumably you've seen the movie recently.
I watched the whole thing last night, so I went to bed at like 12:30.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I watched it a couple days ago. And because you had told me before that this was the one that your husband actually watched all the way through, right?
Yeah, normally he just like doesn't really care, but last night he sat next to me and I kept telling him like, you can go to bed, it's getting late. And he just like kept sitting there and finally I realized like, oh, he's into this and he's not a Harry Potter fan at all. He hasn't read any of the books and he went to go see one of the movies with me, but I think it's because he liked me and it was before we were dating. So like he's trying to impress me. But yeah, he like watched the whole thing and he's like, yeah, this is the best. And it is. There's a lot of action scenes.
This is the one my kids both said they liked the best too, and I think that's what it is. It's primarily two gigantic action sequences, and plus, you find out a lot of important stuff that makes a big difference to everything else that has happened before it. There's a lot of ties to the earlier movies. Of course, Snape's whole plan is finally revealed, which changes a lot of what we thought happened before. But let's start going through this, I guess. So we start. Go ahead.
Also, I need to point out, in case you guys haven't been to Target lately, they have a huge Harry Potter collection right now in pretty much every clothing size, as far as men and women and kids and toddlers and babies. I got this. It says like Seeker on the back.
Nice.
So like it's huge, you guys. So if you haven't been, they're going like, you know, like very, very intense for the next movie coming out in November. So I had to Target. If you're a Harry Potter fan and you want to buy some clothes, okay, Brian, my plug is over now. We can continue.
No, that's good. I haven't looked there in a while, so
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out because I don't have that much. Don't have that much Harry Potter stuff. Every time I'm at Universal, I always look through the gift shops. In fact, next time I'm there, which will be Sunday, I'm probably going to shoot a video or two, like walking through some of the gift shops and just showing off what's there. But the problem is I always look and go, "Wow, this is awesome," and then I look at the price tag and everything's like $60, and I'm like, I don't know. So,
well, question for you, because you're a pass holder, right? Or like do they get discounts on merchandise?
Not mine. I think it's called the seasonal. It's the cheapest of the passes. So I'm blocked out for like Christmas time and July, basically. And there's I don't think there's any discounts available on that one. I actually think right now there might be, because they're having pass holder days for the next like month. So I think even mine might get like a 10% discount or something like that. But the upper they have like Universal has something that I'm shocked Disney hasn't done yet. Universal has like 5 or 6 levels of annual pass that anyone can buy. For Disney, if you're not a Florida resident, you basically there's 2 choices. You can get the annual pass, or you can get the whatever it's called, the Premier like Pass, the one that goes. That's you can get the water parks, and then you can get the one that goes coast to coast, where you can go to either one. That's super expensive. Where Universal has like a whole bunch of levels. Yeah, there John says the top two versions get discounts on clothing. So there are some. There's a version that you get express pass like after 4 p.m. every day and stuff. Like it's they have some pretty cool levels if you're a huge fan there. But
let us know if you want like a podcast episode about that, because if you don't know, Brian and I have a podcast, the TouringPlans podcast.
Yeah, that might be a good just tickets, and because we did a tickets one on Disney, I believe. So a tickets one on Universal might be useful, because I feel like there a lot more people are looking at like shorter tickets too, you know, because a lot of times they're going for 2 or 3 days in the middle of a Disney trip kind of thing. And while we're talking Universal, we might as well mention that one of the 2 major rides from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Escape from Gringotts, comes exclusively from this movie. Yes. It is their attack their supposedly stealth mission to get into Gringotts. That doesn't work well.
Escape from Gringotts.
Yeah, and you've been on it a lot more recently than I have. I mean, is it basically the plot from this film?
It kind of is, except a different Weasley brother. You know, it's led by Bill?
Well, he works at Gringotts, so I think that's so not in the films. I don't think he does, but he works with the goblins in the books. So yeah, he kind of leads you through the ride. I would say that between that and Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, that is the one that really didn't make me motion sick at all. No, me either.
That wasn't bad at all.
That's one of the reasons I like Escape from Gringotts so much more, is because it doesn't make me sick.
That's probably why. I actually just liked it more in general. I thought it was thrilling. It was really, really good.
Yeah. And Voldemort and Bellatrix show up in it, don't they? Am I remembering that right? Yeah.
It's different, and it has more like exciting things. So if you've seen the movie, you're not going to be like, oh, I know what to expect. It's not like that at all. So I definitely, that was my favorite out of the 2 bigger ones. And then I didn't do Flight of the Hippogriff just because we were short on time and it didn't look like a real ride. It's more of a kid's ride.
It is, yeah.
But I did get footage of it.
Oh, good.
So on my blog.
Yeah, Escape from Gringotts, I think, is actually my favorite attraction at Universal right now. And actually, one of my other favorite ones, possibly my second favorite, is The Mummy, which is actually a very similar ride. Just with, yeah, it's that kind of like stop and go coaster kind of, that like small car like stop-go coaster with a lot of effects and things. Although the Mummy was built a lot earlier, so it's a lot more like practical or effects that look a little dated now compared to Escape from Gringotts. But
Oh,
I
well, yeah,
love them.
because
I love the
it's
Mummy.
a
I think that's
ride.
great. But yeah, and
Well,
then of course the dragon on top of Gringotts Bank in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Diagon Alley, is the exact dragon that they free.
and I just posted a picture of that on our Instagram page, I think last week, which is just
Mm.
TouringPlans. So if you want to see what that looks like, head over there. Just to acknowledge our comments, because I don't want you guys to think we forgot about you. John, he joins us for every Harry Potter chat. And I know you, John, by now. Like, I can tell you're a hardcore Universal fan. He said that he's working on an article for another site about budgets and tickets if we need help. I mean, we are kind of delving into the land of Universal. Brian, you know a lot more about it than I do because you kind of started that Universal journey earlier than me. My first trip was just in July, but you're going, what, tomorrow?
So, well, yeah,
You leave
I'm
today,
leaving
right?
tonight for Disney to do the Not So Scary Halloween party tomorrow. And then Saturday night, I'll go over to the Aventura Hotel, which is Universal's new hotel that just opens today officially. And then Sunday, I'll be at Universal shooting videos. Yeah.
And then I am debating whether I want to go to Universal in November to cover Christmas. I'll probably put a poll out on Twitter in the future. Let me know your thoughts if you want me to cover Christmas at Universal. If I get enough interest, I'll do it. Otherwise, maybe I'll skip. But just to acknowledge your comments, we'll keep doing that, and then we'll cover the storyline, so this isn't forever long. Dee said, first of two of my favorite scenes are when we see Flitwick running through the battle scene with the others. Like when he's going through the stone guards. Is that the one you're talking about? As a little person, that was probably one of Warwick Davis's most difficult scenes to film. And it is no easy task for a little person with dwarfism to run in that capacity. I can definitely see why that would be difficult, especially, doing any scene like with green screens and not really knowing what you're running through because it's not actually there, like pretty much with the movie Avatar, everything was done with green and blue screens, right? And then George said, I got stuck dangling face down in Forbidden Journey once.
Oof.
That, nope, I would never go on it again if that happened. And then Dee said, my other favorite scene is the end where you see them all bring their children to King's Cross. Yeah, that was a sweet one.
Yeah, and Warwick Davis doing double duty in this movie because he also plays Griphook in this film, which is one of the weird trivia things. Yeah, Vern Troyer actually played Griphook in the first film.
The first one.
But in this one, at least the credits credit Warwick Davis as Griphook in this one. So I think maybe because they had him on set already, they said, "Hey, you want 2 paychecks?" And he said, "Sure, yeah."
Wow, they really changed up his look.
But yeah, so which I thought was interesting. But yeah, so poor Warwick Davis not only had to do a lot more activity than Flitwick normally does, but also had to put on all that makeup, which I'm sure took hours and hours for Griphook.
Well, and he was just at Universal, a couple weeks
ago? He does a lot of that. He's done when they used to do Star Wars weekends, like he was one that was always there for that, and like the celebration of Harry Potter, he's almost always there for that stuff. Like he does a lot of fan events it helps that he's been part of, both Star Wars and Harry Potter films.
Yeah,
which,
he's doing well.
So, they have a lot of fan events for those two things. So.
Yeah, he keeps busy then. Okay, Brian, I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting. We can continue.
No, that's okay. Because like I said, I don't, about the specific movie.
I double-checked. He was both.
Yeah, we're gonna. My plan is to go a little bit more broad, especially towards the end, because now we can talk more about the series as a whole than we could before. But just little thing. We start this one at Shell Cottage, which is where Bill and Fleur live. And where Harry's talking to both Griphook and Ollivander. They cut a lot of Ollivander's exposition out of the movie, but because it's a lot. You don't ever just want one person monologuing forever, although I tend to do that here, I guess.
I'm used to it.
but he explains a lot. Basically he confirms that the Wand of Destiny, the Death Stick, the Elder Wand, the first Hallow exists because he can track it, and he's basically scared of it, but kind of curious as to that Voldemort's with the Elder Wand is formidable. No crap, Ollivander.
In the book, he's a lot more curious about the fact and more excited almost that Voldemort has the wand and what he's capable of with it than in the movie, to the point where Harry's like, I kind of remember why I don't like him very much.
I'll move
shorter.
Book Ollivander's a little creepy. Like, you'd never quite get the sense whether he's 100% good or bad. He's just
but he's a wand maker. I mean, probably alone making wands a lot.
And
all the knowledge he has and all the people he's worked with and seen.
Which is always one of my questions. Like, because he can tell, like, by touching the wands, like, who they belong to, what they're made of. Is that, like, a skill? Is that something that he learned? Or is that just, like, his magical calling that, like, since a baby, that he was like, oh, I know all about these wands? And when it's just, it's a strange.
Like, wizards have gifts? Do you think they have gifts like that?
I mean, we know some do. Tonks does. She's a metamorphagus.
Maybe that's his.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering, because I'm like, because in this, Grigorovich, who's the other wand maker that we know, dies. Ollivander looks fairly old, so I'm just thinking, like, well, what happens after Ollivander goes? Like, are there no more wand makers? He doesn't have an apprentice or anything that I know of. Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. But what's really important here that they did leave in the movie, obviously, is that wands can change allegiance, specifically if somebody defeats their current owner, which is kind of what J.K. Rowling uses as her Deus Ex Machina at the end of this, because I think she had to just find a way for Harry to defeat Voldemort, because Harry in a duel was never going to defeat Voldemort otherwise. So
I have thoughts about that at the end of the movie.
We can talk about that towards the end. Yeah.
It's important to note that defeat doesn't mean kill. And so that was good that Ollivander kind of stated that in the movie, that, he changed his allegiance. Malfoy's wand did. And all he did was just, like, take it out of his hand.
And Holly makes a good point that says his family has been making wands since BC, so clearly it's a family trait. And John says that according to J.K. herself, he is gifted with wands, but he did have to work hard to develop the skills. So maybe his family just has a natural gift, but he also has worked at it for 150 years or however old he is.
Yeah. And he seems really old, according to George, a Brazilian years old.
Yeah.
It's funny.
They also, in the books, which I don't think is ever brought up in the films, while they're at Shell Cottage, Remus comes in and announces that Tonks has had a baby named Teddy Remus Lupin, and they do that. J.K. just does that to make us even more sad when we find out that both Tonks and Lupin have died.
Oh, yeah.
So
she throws that in just for fun, just to bring up more tears.
So that's great. That was enjoyable.
All right. Where else? We kind of talked about Gringotts a little bit.
Yep.
It more or less stuck to the book, really.
Yeah, that part, and that I really like that entire sequence when they go in and Harry has to use the Imperius Curse, and the action with the dragon and all that stuff. I enjoyed quite a bit. One thing that I think hurts this movie is that they left something out of Half-Blood Prince, which was that Dumbledore already basically knew what some of the Horcruxes were and had suspicions on the others. Yeah. So going into this, Harry already knows that Hufflepuff's cup is a Horcrux. They think there is something of either Gryffindor or Ravenclaw's that is one, and Dumbledore is pretty sure the only Gryffindor relic is the Sword of Gryffindor, which is definitely not a Horcrux. And he knows that the snake, he has strong suspicions that the snake Nagini is a Horcrux. In this movie, they kind of have to just have Harry like see that stuff and be like, hey, look at that cup up there.
And, like,
That's got a
feel
badger on it.
Yeah.
And they kind of have to make the Horcruxes talk to him so that like he knows, because they never said that. And again, it's one of those things that it's the same screenwriter, the same director. Like they probably could have just been like, hey, you know what, we should put in this scene because this is going to make us way easier later in the movie, so we don't have to like make up reasons why this is happening. But
well, I do notice that they did a lot of script changes from the book, but it didn't necessarily affect the overall movie. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things, especially towards the end, did not happen the same way that they did in the book. It was a lot different. But it didn't, like, you still got the point, you still got the information, so it didn't really change it overall.
The very end battle is the only one I don't like the changes made, but we'll talk about that when we get to the end. There's also, this is just some stuff that they just cut out of the movie because they had 2 movies, they would have needed a third one to fit everything in. We don't get the full Ariana Dumbledore story, which is Albus and Aberforth's little sister, who was seen doing magic by muggles and basically tortured into insanity by them. Then their father went after the muggles and ended up going to Azkaban for attacking muggles, and the sister had to be like kept in the house and basically would just have these explosions of magic that came out of her. One of them killed their mother, and then she eventually was killed by either Grindelwald or Dumbledore, one of the Dumbledore brothers, and no one knows who. One of the more heartbreaking sequences that, or lines, I should suppose, that both Dumbledore brothers, say, it was that none of them know who dealt the killing blow, and Albus Dumbledore says, when he talks to Harry at the end, that it's one of the reasons he was afraid to face Grindelwald, because he was afraid that he would finally find out that it was him that actually killed his sister, which I kind of wonder if they're going to tell her story in the new Fantastic Beasts. I hope so, a little bit. I think that would make the relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore a lot more interesting. Plus, they introduced Obscuras in Fantastic Beasts. I just watched Fantastic Beasts with my kids, and it annoyed me again that they used like 4 different terms throughout the movie for it. But and it sure sounds like Ariana might have been an Obscurus, the way they describe it in the book. So it could actually come back there, which would be interesting.
It all makes sense now. Just to go back to the comments, John said, disarming is all that is necessary for one to potentially change allegiance. And that's true. And that's the big point that Voldemort misses throughout the entire thing. Also, jumping ahead to how a certain professor dies, was he technically killed by Voldemort?
Who?
Snape?
Oh, well, no, that was actually one of the things I was going to bring up later, which is funny because, well, one, the logic of Harry being the master of the Elder Wand is iffy because he disarmed Draco, but he disarmed Draco's wand from Draco. Draco never had the Elder Wand, so okay, I guess, whatever. But yeah, Voldemort really thought that killing Snape would give him power. He didn't kill Snape. Nagini killed Snape.
He did a little cut on his neck, and then he's like, Nagini, kill. And then Nagini went to town. But so would that have even worked even if he was the master of the Elder Wand, because that's part of his soul? I don't know.
It wouldn't have, because it wasn't ever Snape's wand, but still, yeah, I know. I thought that too. I'm like, well, that wasn't very smart.
I know, and it was really brutal. I got a little disturbed just watching that scene, and then he just kept biting, and it just. Ugh.
And I thought in the book, when Snape dies, he just tells Harry, "Look at me," and then looks into his eyes. In the film, he actually says, "You have your mother's eyes," as he stares at him, which is super creepy.
I know. Even reading the "Look at me," I was like, But no, I think they still did a good job on that part. And wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have to wait. Okay.
You don't have to.
About Ariana. And...
Yeah, there's there's once we get into the battle, actually there's a part. Professor McGonagall is just a bad witch in both the good way, in both the books and the movies in this one. But she has a line or a sequence here from the book, challenging Professor Slughorn about Slytherin. If you wish,
please read what you wrote. Brian wrote in the notes.
McG throwing it down. Yes. If you wish to leave with your students, we shall not stop you. But if any of you attempt to sabotage our resistance or take up arms against us within this castle, then Horace, we duel to kill. Minerva, he said, aghast. The time has come for Slytherin House to decide upon its loyalties, interrupted Professor McGonagall. Go and wake your students, Horace. Is just the greatest, like gauntlet thrown line at Slughorn and Slytherin House. We duel to kill is a wonderful. J.K. Rowling her story structures, I think, are almost perfect. The actual writing, there are times when it goes in and out. The last 4 or 5 chapters of this book are some of my favorite writing that I know of, honestly. The Forest Again and King's Cross chapters. When Harry walks into the forest or is getting ready to. And then the parts with Dumbledore are so well written. There are so many good lines that I will read some of and try not to cry, which is great. And this whole section is so well written. Harry goes, we don't get to see Ravenclaw's common room in the film, which I was a little disappointed in because Harry goes to it in the books. And I would have liked to seen it. We don't ever get to see Ravenclaw or Hufflepuffs. So.
Well, I know that they're the forgotten houses.
Basically.
Which is very disappointing. But Brian writing in our notes, Mick G throwing it down will forever be like my favorite line I ever seen him write down. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you guys think about when you remember reading about Snape, was that a shocking thing to you? Gosh, at this point, I've read the book so many times. I can't really remember my initial reaction. I know I was like, wait, as always, I had to reread it a few times. And then I feel like my heart just broke as I realized it was kind of that love story and just Snape.
I would say stalker story. It was unrequited love.
Okay, well, you say stalker story, and then I feel weird about feeling bad for him. But come on, I mean, he never got a happy ending. His whole life was so sad.
It was. He has an unbelievably tragic story in these movies, and I feel terrible for him because if he had made better choices of friends in school, his life probably would have been a lot differently. And who knows, maybe he would have ended up with Lily because she really started to turn on him when he started hanging out with all the Death Eaters.
Yeah, and she was his friend for a long time.
Yeah.
Despite what everyone said.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it always creeps me out a little bit that he is still so in love with her now, 16 years after her death, that and the fact that he kind of protects Harry, but also readily admits that he doesn't care that much about him. He's only doing it because
a lot happened to him.
Yeah. Well, even the end, I mean, the famous scene when Dumbledore says, hold on, I pulled a lot of quotes from the books here because they're so good. Have you grown to care for the boy after all? Said Dumbledore. And for him, shouted Snape, expecto patronum. And then we see the doe, and that's when Dumbledore says, Severus, after all this time? And yep. So, but I like even that line is, have you grown to care for the boy? No, of course not. I still love his mother.
No. He's half his mom.
But
I mean, when was it? When did they mention this? I don't know what book or if it was this book, but was it in the flashbacks in the book when in the first book when Harry was being jinxed on his broom and they thought that Snape was jinxing him, but really he was muttering a counter curse.
Yes. Yeah.
When was that revealed? Was it in
No,
the
that's
book?
they find that out like immediately in the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay. So, I mean, it was those kind of things that
Yeah.
he did, like,
I
under wraps.
I never really thought he was going to end up being bad. I really liked how they explained the whole thing with him and him killing Dumbledore and all that, but I could never see J.K. Rowling making him a bad guy in the end. Like, it just didn't seem like what she really wanted to do. But Harley has a great point that oh no, I'm sorry, it was Holly. That says Snape is the reverse of the Wreck-It Ralph quote. Just because you're a good guy doesn't make you a good guy, and that's exactly, just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he's a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he's not a bad guy. We know that now, but he's not really a good guy either. He still did join the Death Eaters, and you know, his spying is the reason that Harry's parents were murdered, and you know, I mean, but you know, choices. That's this whole series I talked about on one of these before. This whole series comes down to you are the choices that you make, and he made some very bad choices, and then some very good ones that redeemed him for a lot of it. You know.
I don't know about you guys, but I would say that in the book, the whole Snape part didn't really make me cry. But in the movie, when he's holding Lily, who's dead, and like Harry's in the background, baby Harry being ignored, you know, ignore the baby who just watched his parents die. And Harry's crying, and Snape's holding her, and he's crying. I was just like, and I was crying.
Although all of the adult Snape flashback scenes made me really miss Alan Rickman, because he is fantastic in those scenes. Especially the one where he first meets with Dumbledore and is like just upset because he had apparently just come from the house with Lily, and then, you know, vows to do anything as long as he doesn't, you know, that sequence is great.
Did he just like leave Harry there after he held Lily?
Yeah. Because Hagrid's the one that comes to get him, and
so bring him in the motor.
Presumably, since everyone else thought Snape was a Death Eater, presumably, and in the books, Sirius was there. Well, he had to be in the movie too, because that's how Hagrid gets his motorcycle. So I can't imagine Sirius letting him live if he shows up and finds him there. Just so I'm guessing, he just left.
No, what was it? Oh, and then how, you know, Snape said always, and then Harry, when he's in the forest and he has all his family around him, his dead family, after turning the resurrection stone, and then his mom's last line is always, and I was like, ooh, that was grand.
Yeah, and now that we're getting there, this is the part of the book that always makes me tear up, is everything from Harry waking up on the carpet, or not waking up, but coming to on the carpet after being in the pensive, to when he walks into the forest, is heartbreaking. This is Harry Potter, we've said before, has a lot of faults. Bravery is not one of them. Bravery is kind of his thing. He will rush headlong into everything. And this is his brave. Oh, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. Zelda? You're gonna get a little bit background of Zelda music, because
like old school Zelda.
I have it plugged in over there, and apparently, it's the NES version. I have it plugged in over there, and apparently did not put it on vibrate when I started this.
That just ruined the moment.
Sorry about that.
But we were all about to cry.
So anyway, well, that's good, because I was. So that stopped me from crying. But this is by far Harry's bravest thing that he does throughout the story, is walk knowingly into death.
Which is not easy for anyone.
No, and here's, I mean, there are some just heartrending quotes. Would it hurt to die? All those times he had thought that it was about to happen and escaped. He'd never really thought about the thing itself. His will to live has always been so much stronger than his fear of death. Yet it did not occur to him to try to escape, to outrun Voldemort. He talks about not being able to go see Hermione or Ron or Ginny, or Luna or the other Weasleys, because he wasn't sure he would be able to turn away from them. He does actually see Ginny and he manages to not say anything to her because he can't, you know. And
Yeah.
now I'm choking up. This one's gonna get me because this he stops and does talk to Neville because, like I said in the books, he knows the snake is a Horcrux. Ron and Hermione know the snake is a Horcrux because he's been telling them everything that Dumbledore has been telling him, and he knows he's going to die, and he wants a third option, like Dumbledore used to. He's found out throughout this whole sequence that he's becoming a little bit more like Dumbledore than he wants to be. He's compartmentalizing information. He is keeping secrets from people. You know, trying to focus them on tasks. And this is one of those where he tells Neville that he has to kill the snake. He doesn't tell him why, doesn't tell him anything. He just tells him he has to kill it. And Neville knows what he's going to do. And he seizes his wrist as Harry is made to move on. We're all going to keep fighting, Harry. You know that. And which says a lot about Neville and his growth throughout the series here is incredible.
Oh yeah, you see Neville, and he starts out at the beginning just clumsy and afraid of everything and forgetful and just, you know, the underdog in every single way. He's like the epitome of an underdog. And then you see him leading the fight at Hogwarts at the end of it, and you see him all bloodied and bruised, and he's just like the hero of Hogwarts. And he is, you know, they're like, yeah, Neville's the man.
Yeah.
And he becomes, in a way, Harry's replacement, and Harry kind of picks him as the one to replace him, and which is very telling, since with the prophecy it was between him and Neville the whole time. And so that's just, I don't know, that was very perfect.
Yeah, they're tied together in many ways.
I'm trying not to tear up now.
Well, and that's why I purposely didn't pull any of the quotes from when he brings you know, all of his parental figures back with the resurrection stone that he finds in the snitch. You know, I open at the close, and because I couldn't read any of them. There's no way. But I thought it was interesting that of all the parental figures he brought back, Dumbledore is not one of them. And I think a lot of this is Harry internally not being sure that he can trust Dumbledore. And I don't think he ever is sure of that again, even though he is more sure after he gets to talk to him one more time, which we are basically on right now. But another just heartbreaking scene when he walks to his death, being protected by his parents and his godfather and Remus, who kind of subbed in for his father briefly, you know. So,
and he tried to touch his mom. That was the first person he went towards, and he tried to touch his mom, and he couldn't. So, like, he had them surrounded, but he was still all alone at the end of the day. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, we need to move on, because now I'm about to cry, and we can't have two of us crying, because we need to get through the rest of this.
So, well, just before we get into the final battle here, the scene with him and Dumbledore, another in the book, one of my favorite scenes. You learn so much about Dumbledore, how much his sister's death just weighed on him the rest of his life, his very long life. You know, what happened with him in Grindelwald. You know, how he then basically spent the rest of his life trying to fight against people like that, to make up for the damage that he did with Grindelwald in one summer. You know, it's not all of it is in the movie, but quite a bit of it is. And this is one of the parts where I think Michael Gambon did okay as Dumbledore. I'm not crazy about him for most of the time, but in this one, you know, when he talks about the Hallows, this is all from the book. Maybe a man in a million could unite the Hallows, Harry. I was fit to only possess the meanest of them, the least extraordinary. The stone I would have used in an attempt to drag back those who are at peace, rather than to enable my self-sacrifice as you did. You are the worthy possessor of the Hallows, Dumbledore tells him, which is, it's all, you know, it really is Dumbledore admitting that something that he says he knew for a long time, that Harry was a better person than him. He was the only one who could have stopped Voldemort, and he does. So,
It just goes back to Harry having so many flaws and having so much sadness and terrible things happen to him. I mean, I was telling my husband as we were watching, like, can you imagine being 17 and having all these terrible things happen and see all these horrible things at 17? But Harry still has so much good in him despite
and
all
yet
of
still being able to walk into a forest knowing that you're about to die.
And then, you know, what they don't mention in the movie is that by dying, he died for everyone. So he did, you know, his mother died for him.
Yes.
So that love protected him.
Yeah, he
and
tells...
So Harry died for everyone else. So his love for them protected everyone. So all the spells that all the Death Eaters were casting on them and Voldemort was casting on them during the battle, they weren't sticking because Harry's love was protecting them.
Yeah, he tells Voldemort towards the end of the book, I've done what my mother did. They're protected from you. Haven't you noticed how none of the spells you put on them are binding? You can't torture them. You can't touch them. You don't learn from your mistakes, Riddle, do you? You dare!
I would have liked to see that speech in the movie, but instead they dueled, which honestly, a 17-year-old versus the
Voldemort?
best wizard in the world next to Dumbledore, like that, there would have been no contest, like no competition.
And this is where I start to not enjoy the changes they made. So in the movie, everyone they think Harry is dead for quite a bit longer. Or not, I'm sorry, in the book, they think he's dead for quite a bit longer than they do in the movie. In the movie, he basically he just kind of jumps up and reveals himself, like, after, like, a couple of minutes. Yeah. In the movie, they kind of, Neville gets a little bit more of a speech, which that I'm fine with. Again, you know, Neville as hero is a good turn. He still, you know, pulls the sword out of the sorting hat. It happens a little differently in the book. Voldemort actually uses the sorting hat to torture him. He lights it on fire on his head, and then when he gets it off, because it's non-binding, you know, as we just said, the sword is in it, and he kills the snake immediately. Immediately. The whole end sequence in the book is super fast. In fact, when I first read it, I was shocked at how quickly it went.
You have to reread it a couple times.
Yeah, and on rereads, I actually kind of like that, because I think drawing it out like they did in the movie, I don't think helps it. It just kind of makes you go, like you said, well, how is Harry staying with Voldemort? Like, nobody can stay. You kind of have to do it quick, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Like,
and how are Ron and Hermione not able to defeat a snake? Like, you can keep it at bay with at least spells.
Yeah, you'd think one of them would remember they're a witch and a wizard, but
like, it's Hermione. Like, come on, she knows every spell.
Also, but I think my biggest problem with the end of the movie compared to the book, in the book, it is a battle. The centaurs come out of the forest to fight. The house elves blow the doors off the kitchen and come running out with Creature in the lead,
and like little knives
with the fake locket dangling from his chest. Yeah, and knives stabbing all the Death Eaters in the legs and stuff.
Grob comes out. Was that in the movie?
There were giants there, right?
There were giants, but
I don't know if Grob was, I don't know. I don't remember.
I forgot. I did watch it.
The townspeople, the people of Hogsmeade come to aid support. And this all happens when they think Harry is dead. At this point, they don't know he's dead, and it just shows them all, like, what Neville said, that they keep fighting. And then you miss that. That's gone in the books. Half the Death Eaters flee. You follow Ron and Hermione and Neville and the snake, and you follow Harry and Voldemort, and you kind of see small battles happening, like Bellatrix and Molly, of course. But you don't get the sense that this is a battle. It almost seems like it's like 3-on-3, and which is a really weird choice. It's almost like they ran out of budget for extras or something. Like, okay, if you don't have the budget to do the giants or the centaurs, like, fine, but just have townspeople, have other people there, like, something,
around. They found like the Harry and Voldemort like morphing together, because they didn't really add much.
Yeah, that was weird. I did not understand what that was supposed to be. But what I actually would have really liked to see as a departure from the book in the film, I would have kind of liked to see the film try to trick us into thinking Harry really is dead. not have the part where Narcissa goes over and touches. I mean, you'd have to show that later. You'd have to do it as a flashback later because it's important. But just have, cut to Hagrid walking out with Harry's body, and everybody now, because in the movie, or in the book, what happens is they all end up in the Great Hall because Neville has killed the snake. The townspeople come from the flank, and it chases the Death Eaters into the hall. That's where Molly and Bellatrix duel. Not my daughter, and which is great. It's about the only swear word in the books. And it's so impactful.
Really
yeah.
She saved it till the last minute. It was well used.
Yeah. And then right after that, Voldemort screams this scream of fury and goes to curse Molly, and all of a sudden the shield charm erupts in the hall, and no one knows where it came from, and that's where Harry rips off the cloak, and everyone's like, "Oh, cool." And then they do their duel, which consists of one attack. And a couple minutes of talking beforehand, and that's it, and then it's over. Where in the movie, I think it would have been really cool if we thought he was dead until that moment, and all of a sudden, shield charm, and everybody being confused, and then Harry comes out. I think that would have been a very cool thing. Oh, we have guests.
Hi, little house elf.
Go back out there till I'm done. Okay, Bella, who is your house elf?
What? Oh, yeah.
Hi. But anyway, but I think that would have been a really cool part of
hi, Jay.
Of the film.
I think I have to go now.
Okay. Well, I'll wrap it up. There's not much more anyway. So, but I personally think that would have been a very cool. But it would have been a very cool tie-in. That if the film goers didn't know Harry was not dead and it was revealed to everyone. Instead, they went the opposite way and just revealed it super early and then had a chase that kind of ran around the castle for reasons that I don't understand. Because, in this battle with Voldemort, he explains to him about the Elder Wand. He explains to him that, that he died to save them. And he calls him.
That should have been explained.
He calls him Tom Riddle a couple of times, which of course just enrages Voldemort, which is great. Crazy. I mean, it's very much, and there's a really beautifully painted picture in the book where they're fighting all night, and the Hogwarts ceiling, of course, is enchanted to look like the outside sky. And just as the sun rises and the ceiling erupts in orange, that's when they cast the spells on each other, which would have just been a beautiful sequence in the movie, which, Voldemort goes for the killing curse because it's Voldemort. And Harry goes for, as the Binge Mode podcast says, his one true love, the Expelliarmus curse. And
it's like the only spell he remembers, honestly.
Well, everybody has their go-to in stressful situations, and that's his. So yeah, it's great. I really, really grown to love the way the end goes here in the books. And then Harry does basically get rid of the Elder Wand. He doesn't snap it like he does in the movie, but that's that's pedantic. He doesn't. He doesn't need to. But
the other thing, he doesn't fix his old wand before he snaps it, and it drives me crazy because then he just has to get a new wand, and it's like, Harry, in the book you fixed it. By the way, John wrote "LOL spew" in the comments, and that made me laugh. I couldn't laugh right away. Yes.
And then then we get the epilogue, the 19 years later, which honestly isn't my favorite. I mean, I like it from a ribbon tied on, like, okay, look, everybody's just fine. But I don't know that I needed it either.
Honestly, I liked hearing J.K. Rowling's interview better than the 19 years later. The fact that, Harry and Ron were ours, and then Ron went and helped Fred. Right?
George is the one that's left,
George is left. And how Ginny played Quidditch for a while, and now she's a reporter. I would have liked that a little better, but I mean, this was a nice, like you said, little bow, and it was a lot shorter. I think that's a lot.
Yeah, which again, we don't need to know that Neville is the herbology professor and that kind of stuff, I guess. But Yeah, and then, you know, they go into the Cursed Child, which is not canon, and I'm not reading it. So,
No, I haven't read it either. I mean, I don't have time to read, but like, if I did, I don't know.
yeah, I don't really have interest, which is, you know, so we're not doing it for this, obviously. But that's it. So, I don't know. Do you have anything you'd like to say about any of this, the series as a whole, the last one?
Honestly, I'm still a little flustered from my house elves coming in.
Good
No,
house elves,
so
stay out of sight.
I know. I'm just like, I feel like that guy that was on TV doing like a meeting, and then his kids come in, and then his wife's like, ah. By the way, my husband did my daughter's hair. He clearly needs some.
I actually couldn't see them that much. Your chair was blocking
Okay.
most of your visible camera. So.
So we are done with our Harry Potter series. We will resume our Disney chats. So thank you for those of you who have been waiting on those. You've been very, very patient. I know that you enjoyed those, but this was something that we wanted to do because, you know, we don't focus a lot on Universal Orlando or Harry Potter. And, you know, it's just something different we wanted to try since we both were going. And so for those of you who have been with us week after week, we really appreciate it.
And Dee, before Dee had to jump, she said she looks forward to the Star Wars marathon next year, which we will have to do before Galaxy's Edge opens, because that will be fun. And we have what are there, 8 movies this time? We've got what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total Star Wars movies right now, and there will be at least one more before then.
I kind of feel like we're just gonna have to do the original 6.
Yeah, I don't know that like Rogue One. I don't know that Rogue One or Solo is going to matter much. I think we should probably do Force Awakens and Last Jedi, maybe. Oh, I don't know. I guess once we find out some of the stuff that's going into, at least maybe Force Awakens, just because I know one of the attractions is Battle of the First Order. So presumably that's going to have a big part of it. So
you're going to have to put your thoughts below, or if that's something you want us to do. But then again, we have, you know, until next year to talk about that.
Yeah. We'll decide that next year after this. But yes, we will try to be back, if not next week, at least the week after, with a just regular theme park Q&A. So
finally, Harley said, did anyone else feel bad about Harry's second child's name? Yes, that's a mouthful. And then John said, why do your house elves not bring a feast? I know, they never bring me snacks, they just eat all of mine. So
and my house elves aren't great either, because I feel like I clean up after them way more than the other way around.
You know what my problem was? I gave them clothing.
So
they're like off duty. I should have just put them in a pillowcase.
Send them to school in tea towels and pillowcases. Yeah.
I know, that was my mistake. But yes, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry for, I don't know, whatever happened with my phone and my internet.
Yeah, we got through it.
But I will be back to do a Facebook Live, I think, next week. I'll give Brian a break because
and check out anybody who's still watching. I think I'm gonna my Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party video. I think will go up Monday morning. I was gonna try to do it Saturday, but I think it's too much to edit the video in the middle of the night, then having to rely on Disney's Wi-Fi to get it uploaded and all that. So I think I'm just going to do it when I come home Sunday. So that will be up first thing Monday morning. It will be a probably 20 or 30-minute video of me wandering around the Magic Kingdom and eating a burger that has like tater tots on it or something. I don't know if you saw Disney Parks blog put up a post today that was the special foods that are going to be available during Halloween time, and one of them is like this black bunned burger with like that looks like it has like tater tots stuffed in it. It looks terrible, and I'm going to eat it. So
that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So we have Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party video coming Monday. Tuesday we have my Harry Potter vlog, and then you might have the Aventura.
I'll have Aventura. I'll have probably the rest of the week. I'll have Aventura videos. I might put them up like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, actually, just because.
So that will be on
it's new and exciting. So yeah.
So if you're not subscribed there, subscribe, because we have about 3 videos, at least 3 or 4 videos a week. So join us there and have a great day.
Thank you all for watching. Bye.